My name is Greta Swift. Currently, I live in Philadelphia. I'm a senior analyst for Rubenstein Partners. That's a private equity commercial real estate company focused in investing in office transitional real estate. I'll get more into that later. Before I was an MBA student at Syracuse, I lived in Texas. I moved to Texas in high school, actually from Syracuse. So it kind of was coming full circle to come back to Syracuse. I studied sport management in my undergraduate at Texas A&M, and I wanted to work in sports. Quickly, I realized that sports is a very competitive industry. It's viewed as very glamorous, so the employment is not as glamorous. So I decided to take a pivot from that and pursue my MBA. They basically just give me a more general business knowledge, and since I was already from Syracuse, I applied to the MBA program there, and I headed right back to where my childhood was. It's been a crazy road. During my MBA, there was still a part of me that wanted to work in sports, but only if it was the correct role. I graduated in the May of 2020. So as we can imagine, the timing wasn't glorious for the job market. I actually graduated without a job, and I was just working in my graduate assistant job for the first 2 months after graduating. And I took the first job I could get. That was at a company called Spinoza Real Estate Group. It is a mall management company in Syracuse, New York. I was an asset analyst for them. And as you can imagine, the mall industry isn't doing so hot. So there was a lot of glum moments in that job. And I decided I wanted to stay in real estate because I was starting to learn a lot about it, but maybe take a step back and reevaluate what I wanted to do. And that's when a recruiter reached out to me with Rubenstein Partners and asked me to interview for the position of assistant property manager, which is where you work on the property and basically manage tenant relations, do budgeting work, things like that. And that property was in Stamford, Connecticut. So within 2 weeks, this is August of 2020, I had interviewed, I had accepted the position, and I had moved to Stamford, Connecticut. And while I was there, I was there for like 8 months as assistant property manager. I wasn't really deploying my MBA skills though, but our regional director knew I had like a really strong finance and analytic background. And one day I mentioned it when I was on a panel in front of the entire company, and it got the attention of a couple of different people, and they were in need of some more analysts. So they called me and said, would you be interested in moving to our headquarters in Philadelphia? And I said yes. I figured being flexible, it would take me to the next level of my career. And I became the analyst in April of 2021. And I moved to Philly. And then after that, I recently was promoted in December to senior analyst. When I was at my APM position, I was kind of viewed as overqualified, but given the way the market was, I was happy to be there and happy to have a job. On that call, I was on a panel for women's diversity and inclusion, and it was in front of our company. All the senior execs were there, and I said I had an MBA from Syracuse. I said I had Excel knowledge, all things I've learned in my MBA. I had working knowledge of how finance, like cash flows, all the different income statements worked. And that is everything I learned in my MBA. I did not learn that in my sport management degree at Texas A&M. I learned that in my classes at Syracuse. And that is basically, they're like, you're qualified to be an analyst. We need analysts. You should come here. And that kind of is how it all ties together. Everything Excel. I do a lot of heavy financial modeling. So from everything as simple as a pivot table, getting into macro functions, I learned that in the analytics focus of my MBA classes. And I've been able to take, even having that base, and take it to the next level in my job. The Syracuse MBA is totally focused on group work. They I was always in a diverse team. We all were always paired based on our different backgrounds. Like for me, my attribution was that I was the youngest by far. I think there was 2 of us that were fresh out of undergrad that actually were in the MBA program. And just working in those teams, facing adversity together, also learning how to like leverage different weaknesses and strengths to the best to create the best product is something that I directly saw coming out of my MBA. When I worked in Spinoza Real Estate Group when I was in Syracuse, that like I honestly, like, even though I was faced with like a lot of adversity and how glum the mall industry was, like being able to leverage the relationships I had around me gave me some hope that maybe as a team that we could bring this forward, we can make this better. And then I left. But alas, I think the teamwork really did translate immediately into my career. It really is understanding the people that you work with around you, having empathy, but also it's that it really all came down to how we communicated with each other and how we continue to communicate. Because in schoolwork, for my undergrad, like everything was very me, individual oriented. And then coming into MBA, everything became a team. Like all your grades were as a team. And that's kind of how the real world works as well. Coming in and working as a group, like you don't get grades back. Like, and that's exactly how the MBA treated it as well. It's like it was much more business environment. A lot of the times previously, I always took the role of like the leader of the group. That was something that I felt like I was the best fit for. I just assumed it was what I was going to do. I was going to delegate. I was going to manage everything. And then I got into my MBA and it turned out we're all type A's. And that kind of was a shock to me and created conflict, honestly. And realizing that you need to really assess the people around you, see who is actually the best at each skill versus what you feel like you're the best at, so you should do that instead. Understanding how to balance that was something really big I took away from my MBA, and it's made me into a good employee now, because basically you learn to shut up when you should and you learn to contribute when you know you have something of substance. You're the wisdom, really. Like everybody else has 5 years of experience. You sit there, you hear from everybody else and kind of get a little bit of a preview of what your career is going to look like before even stepping foot into it. It helps you understand that you're going to face adversity, but you're also going to have moments where you overcome it and it's going to feel awesome. And being the youngest too, like from a personal perspective, it was really nice being able to take my sport management degree and then pivot immediately and like make that decision fast and not have to think about it twice and get it over with, change, and move forward from there. I didn't have as much to contribute a lot of the time. When we were in like scenario settings, I didn't always know what the right thing to say was. And like I said, I was kind of naive, thinking I knew everything and I was going to be able to drive everything. But that kind of is how that balanced out. It's like I learned that I'm not going to be the leader of everything. My cohort was absolutely awesome. I think of the group, 80% were international students. Most nationalities I hadn't even interacted with before. So I got to really know their cultures. I went to different celebrations, celebrated new holidays I've never heard of, and tried a lot of really awesome food. I think one of the best things was that people would cook for me, and like being the youngest, they're like, "Oh, let me like mother you, and you can have all of our delicious food." I honestly we were really close as a cohort because we even went through the pandemic, being in the pandemic together as well. And that kind of just united us even closer as we all faced our job struggles. And it's translated from friendships and just classmates into a network that we all leverage to this day. Some of the people from the class I'm still incredibly close with, and we talk on a weekly basis, and we make trips out to visit each other. Interestingly enough, most of us have moved away from Syracuse, and we are now in different major cities. We have some in Baltimore, some in New York City, like Philly. So creating that network of geographically too has been fun to go visit people. And hopefully once the pandemic's over, I can go see my classmates in India as well. They didn't stifle you. That was the pretty much the key. Was everybody was blind to the demographics around them. I wasn't afraid to speak up because I was a woman. That really is what you would think, that they're like, oh, I joined the women's business, but no, it's really just how they went about their teaching, how the professors really didn't expected top performance from everybody. There was no discrimination based on that. Another thing too is I did take a few course. I had listened to some of my female professors on how to present yourself in the business environment to be taken seriously, and it was about how you don't say the word just in a sentence. You take away the exclamation points out of your emails. It was about speaking with confidence, and also presenting, even the way you look, presenting it with confidence, because even you can be eccentric, you can be a woman about it, but you needed to not be shy. I would describe it as an opportunity to either pivot your career or expand upon your current role. I'll give an example. My fiance, he works in marketing. He's worked in marketing straight out of his bachelor. He was considering an MBA at one point, and he went to a fair and he asked me what did you take away from this? And I was like, well, I got a career pivot out of it. I saw other people be able to achieve higher, they were more qualified for more senior positions. So he's like, well, for me, all I want to do is learn more about marketing. I was like, well, then that's not the purpose of an MBA. Really, it's a qualifier for your future career, and it's a soft skill builder. On the serious side of tips, is if you are somebody that has come from a very sheltered background, going to Syracuse will help you become a better business person. Again, the diversity that you're exposed to will help you understand different people's adversity, how they've come to overcome those things, and it makes you not just a better business person, but a better business leader. Again, build the empathy. So if you're looking to expand yourself into a business leader, that is definitely something you need to look for in any MBA program, honestly. When you come into your MBA, you don't need to know exactly how you're going to come out of it. It's a 2-year process. You're going to end up, you got to trust that you're going to end up where you're supposed to end up. You're going to take on the focuses, the specializations. When you find a class that you love, you don't need to go in there announcing, I'm going to be finance and data analytics. I went in with just finance and I left with the data analytics. I never thought that was my thing. On this less serious side, buy a really, really nice coat.